Some coffee's fast, but not fresh. Some coffee's fresh, but only after a long wait. Speedway coffee is made fresh at the push of a button, hot or iced, so you can have fresh coffee your way, right away. Find a store near you at speedway.com/locations.
What you want is sometimes far from what you get. At Harry Ritchie's, we want you to get the heart-stopping, high-fiving diamond gift you want and pay for it the way you want. Our in-house financing lets you make payments that fit your budget and your life. Plus, at Harry Ritchie's, our jewelry is priced at an everyday, real price. That means you get all of the dazzle with none of the haggling. More boom for your buck. Now open at Clackamas Promenade. Harry Ritchie's, truly you.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Super J Cast. It's Tuesday the 16th of November and this is episode 185. Your ears are not deceiving you, this is a different voice. I am not Joel. My name is Alan, one of your guest hosts for today, and alongside me is Booze Leprechaun, or under a government name it's Nicole. Nicole, how are you?
I am good, Alan. How are you doing?
Doing well, feeling good to get back on the podcasting bandwagon, even if we are only doing this for 1 week.
See, that's where I'm getting confused, because the whole bonus episode, I can't see, we're already pulling a Joel and Damon and talking, shop business. But I got completely confused as to whether we're doing 2 weeks and there'll be a bonus episode of other people giving their reviews of specific matches, or if it's just next week, it's just going to be nothing. It's just going to be that episode of people giving their reviews of bonus matches. So I guess we'll find out. But outside of that, yeah, no, I'm excited and nervous, and I'm feeling like a young lion about to get my ass handed to me by Yuji Nagata for 5 minutes straight.
Well, I mean, we can leave the decision as to whether we come back again. I think we can leave that to the fans on Reddit. I know they'll be voicing their opinions by the time we finish and get this out. Just as a quick introduction for those listeners that obviously haven't heard our voices before. So my name is Alan, as I previously said. I got into New Japan following the big kind of 6-star classic between Okada and Omega, and that was at Wrestle Kingdom 11. And then a year later, me and Joel were at our first Wrestle Kingdom in Tokyo. So it just kind of all stemmed from there. My love of New Japan kind of just grew and grew and grew, and I've watched it ever since. How did you get into this lovely world of New Japan?
So I've been watching wrestling off and on since the early 80s. I'm going to show my age when I state that we had one of those satellite dishes that looks like something that you could try and scope aliens with now. And so I have memories of us possibly pirating WrestleMania 3 unintentionally, because the way those satellite dishes would work, it'd be like this big control knob, and you would just find different satellites and different channels on them. And we somehow stumbled onto that, and then watched it on and off. So I was definitely watching the Monday Night Wars between WCW and WWE when I was in college. And then on the New Japan side, I'm a big fan of MVP, and I'm an unapologetic fan of Sean Waltman, 1-2-3 Kid. That's how I got into him initially. Most of you probably still know more of his X-Pac gimmick days. And both of their podcasts were talking about Nakamura as somebody who could break out from NXT. I'm like, okay, I trust these guys. Let me go do some Nakamura hunting on YouTube. So the first match I found was Nakamura AJ Wrestle Kingdom 10. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I can see why they're talking about him. This is great. And then you start going down the YouTube rabbit hole. And initially it was pointing me towards like Nakamura, Marufuji tag matches in Noah. And I was like, oh, okay, this is really kind of interesting too. And I like I'm starting to get into this Marufuji cat. And then YouTube goes, hey, would you like to watch Ibushi Nakamura Wrestle Kingdom 9? Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll watch that. And that just opened my eyes. There's the spot where Ibushi lamps Nakamura right on the ear with the high kick. Nakamura goes down. He's staring glassy-eyed. Red Shoes is, trying to check on him. Shinsuke. And Nakamura still staring in the middle distance. And I got worked. And I remember sitting there going, oh my God, did I just watch this guy get knocked the fuck out? And then I had to go, wait, you just watched him the next year be perfectly fine in the match against AJ. So no, he doesn't get knocked the fuck out. But I appreciated that at my age, I could still get worked by wrestling and get caught up into the moment. And that's just kind of where it went from there. And then YouTube took me down the Ibushi rabbit hole. And that just opened my world to so many things. But that's basically it for me with New Japan. At the time, I couldn't afford World. I was working part-time. So I didn't get World until 2018.
Right, okay. I mean, with World and watching New Japan on there, I suppose that brings us to one of the few questions that we actually got on Twitter from a guy called Eric Missio. He asked how we both watch New Japan. Do we watch everything? Do we just watch the big shows or just selective main events or with our personal favourites? And do we rewatch things or just watch it live? I mean, for me, over the last kind of year or two, I've drifted away from the Road to shows unless there's a big match on the main event or a title match. But generally, it's just the big events, and I watch Strong every week. I think that's kind of my main New Japan, how I'm watching it. What about yourself?
I was initially like consuming everything and trying to take it all in. Because I had more time then. And then, so that was kind of like, I judge it by pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. And then once the pandemic started, obviously, the product kind of changed a little bit, but all our worlds changed a little bit. And I started getting more of the mindset of, if I'm not enjoying it or it's not fully riveting me, there's no reason for me to get up and watch it live. Because that's how I was doing everything. I was just be like, all right, let me set the alarm, and I'm gonna watch this Road to Kazuna, Kazuna Road Night 5.
Yeah.
And I just don't do that anymore. Now I still do that with the G1, which is absolutely insane. And each year I go, okay, next year I'm not going to do this, and then I do it. And then,
even this year with the G1, I know it's not been its best, but I mean, watching every single show and every single match as part of the tournament, it's almost like a must. Like you've just got to be able. It's the G1. You've got to stick with it.
Yeah, exactly. Because even G1 Night 13 in Beppu or wherever, it's still, odds are good. You're at least going to get like good matches. Maybe not a match of the year contender, but they're all, except for the evil matches. There's still, something to kind of sink your teeth into, something to latch on to. I think this is where Kevin Kelly came in to help tremendously to create that buzz and that desire to watch these shows. And I'm so thankful that he got on the plane, unlike some of the wrestlers, to help make G1 what it is, which is a special month-long, grueling tournament.
Yeah, the G1 is something special, even when it's not, if that makes sense. It's just something that you've got to follow. And having that English commentary, I think, really made the difference. And I think we'll talk about it a little bit later on, but I think we're seeing that with the World Tag League / Best of Super Juniors, that the lack of English commentary, at least live, it is making a difference. And it will make a difference to a lot of people on how they view the tournament.
Definitely. Side note, we forgot to do something already, and we probably should have done this, which is to congratulate Joel and Mally on the birth of Arthur.
Yeah, I can't believe we forgot to do that. So yeah, Joel, thank you for letting us take over for a week, and congratulations to both you and Mally on the birth of baby Arthur. If you follow Joel on Instagram, you'll have seen pictures of the beautiful little baby, and it seems that baby and mum are both doing really well, and we wish the whole family all the best from both us and obviously from everyone out there listening as part of the Super J Cast.
And definitely let's throw flowers Mally's way. I know last week Damon was definitely congratulating Joel and his sperm, but let's be but let's be honest. At best, Joel probably did about 5 minutes worth of work, and Mally did the other 9 months of work. So I got to throw some flowers Mally's way for doing all the hard work 2 times now.
You know what? I will 100% back you on that one, because just my wife is now approaching 8 months pregnant. We're due in January, so I know exactly how easy my life is compared to how much struggle and how much hassle she's going through. So, Mally, you have my utmost sympathy. Well done on managing that twice.
And congratulations to you. I did not realize there was a baby Alan coming along the way. So
a baby Alan or baby Danielle, yes.
Nice.
We don't know what it's going to be yet, so that'll be a nice surprise when the time comes.
Good deal. But yeah, I just realized, we should probably, address the reason why we're, and congratulations to Damon on getting on a plane and going on vacation and probably being, incredibly deep in the Mai Tais by this point in the beer.
Yes, he'll be listening to this half drunk on a sun lounger somewhere. Isn't it Mexico he's going?
I believe so.
Yeah. Well, Damon, if you are listening, which I'm assuming you are, again, thank you for allowing us to take over for a week, and enjoy your holiday, enjoy your rest, and enjoy those beers.
Yeah.
All right. I've got some news, actually. I think we can crack straight on with some of the important stuff. Listeners will know that a few weeks back, Joel announced that the Super J Cast was sponsoring a player at Concord Rangers, which is a football club in the southeast of England that I myself am a part of. I'm the matchday program editor, and I'm a member of the committee there. Players get sponsored every season just to, it gives a bit more money to the club, and it also highlights local companies or people that want to kind of to put money in to back the club. So I put some money into the club and sponsor a player every season. A couple of seasons ago on my old podcast, I sponsored a player on behalf of the Smartcast. And this year I've sponsored a player, and I spoke to Joel, and he agreed to happily put the Jcast name across. So we were sponsoring a young lad called Billy Cracknell. People have seen the updates on Twitter, and Joel put an update a little while back on this very podcast. Since then, however, Billy has been recalled. He was only with Concord Rangers on loan from Colchester United, another team in the southeast of England. So they've taken him back. So now the sponsorship was left vacant. So instead, we're now sponsoring a player called Lamar Reynolds. He's a striker for Concord Rangers, and he's actually one of our more prolific strikers as well. He scored in not a last game, but the game before against the team that was leading the league at the time. So it was Concord Rangers. They won 1-0 thanks to a goal from Lamar. So, we're switching the focus over to a different player now. But the Jcast name will be associated with every goal that he scores and every time he gets a Man of the Match award when he's playing for the mighty Beach Boys.
Very nice. So the sponsorship, do we get like letters from Lamar? Is this kind of like a Sally Struthers thing where we'll get like little updates and get letters and photos of how he's progressing and shout outs and things like that? How does this work?
Basically, I provide Joel with the update of how Lamar is playing, and each time that Lamar, as I say, either scores for Concord or has a man of the match performance, the Concord Rangers socials will mention that is sponsored by the Super J Cast. It's also in the match day program, so anyone who buys a program when they go to a game will see next to Lamar's name that is sponsored by the Super J Cast, and the same on the club website as well. So anytime someone goes to the club website and looks at his bio, it will say that the mighty Super J Cast is sponsoring Lamar Reynolds.
Oh, that's excellent. Very nice.
All the best. I was going to say, I'll see if we can get him to do a stinger. I think Joel mentioned that on the last episode. See if we can get him. Yeah, I'm Lamar Reynolds and you're listening to the Super J Cast.
I just want video of that, and then you having to explain to him what the Super J Cast is.
I can imagine the confusion on his face already.
Excellent.
A couple of other little bits of news to talk about. The New Japan, or NJPW, is reaching its 50th anniversary, and they announced a couple of days ago with the president, Takami Obari. He was joined by Tanahashi, Makabe, and Honma to announce the details of what they're doing for the 50th anniversary. So we've got a new commemorative logo. It looks very snazzy. There's some events that they're doing for the first quarter of the year. There's an exhibit that they're running at the Tokyo Dome with a load of historical artifacts, but bits, items from New Japan's history, including a pair of match-worn Andre the Giant boots as well, which is quite cool. And the January tour is being called the Golden Series, which is a throwback to the early years of New Japan. And I suppose the most interesting thing, I think, for me is the fact that New Japan will be collaborating with 50 different companies to create specific products, such as the LIJ gaming chairs and the Mind-produced golf bags. There'll be New Japan golf bags out there. So there's finding these random products like the gaming chairs and the golf bags could be quite interesting as the year progresses. Did you take anything from that? Anything interest you on that?
With the gaming chairs, does it come with a handle or a little side pouch for the tissues when Naito's knee shreds again, or Sonata fails to win another title? Does it have that handy for people?
I believe it's wiped clean.
Nice, good. Yeah, let me just enrage all the LIJ fans while I'm at it too. Let's just get everybody. I think the biggest takeaway for me was that in basically 2 months, there's going to be like 5 major shows. If that's right, it all kind of culminating, at least maybe the first quarter's worth of this anniversary stuff, culminating with. If I was reading that right, anniversary back at Budokan?
Yes, the March the 1st and 2nd, back-to-back nights celebrating the 50th anniversary and in the Nippon Budokan.
So I look at that and I'm thinking, man, how are we booking those shows? You can't have, I'm going to presume that Okada is going to walk out of the 500 Nights of Wrestle Kingdom with multiple belts, because everybody's got to have a belt now. And what I'm interested to see how those 5 shows, including 2 nights at Budokan, get booked. And is it as much of a mess as last year kind of was, trying to find worthy main events for these kind of B+ level shows that then kind of got elevated to an A level? That's my biggest takeaway are these shows and how that's going to pan out. And I'm just hoping that it makes more sense and is booked a little more solid than the same time period was for this year.
Well, I mean, hopefully, or at least maybe they're kind of relying on the fact that things will open up even more. Obviously, we know that people are going to be able to start going back to Japan. They announced that, was it last week or the week before? We're going to start seeing like people going back for work and things like that. So hopefully by February and early March, that you can see some bigger names from elsewhere in the wrestling world go over and just kind of give us some fresh and new matches that we've not seen in the last 2 years of the limited roster.
Or at least get the strong guys in, because obviously trying to get visas for everybody. I imagine there is a massive visa backlog in Japan. So it's just a matter of, can these visas get pushed through in a timely manner to at least get some of the strong guys in. Get Mr. Fred Rosser in, and some Tom Lawler, West Coast Wrecking Crew. Everybody that Joel and Damon have been talking about wanting to see. If we can at least just get those guys over. I'm not even looking at, getting guys through the forbidden door. Just get me some strong guys at this point to freshen up this roster a little bit and to give guys a break. That's why we're kind of, you've got Ibushi breaking down. You've got Naito breaking down. Okada finally is kind of put back together. Tanahashi is in his permanent state of hairspray and cortisone, keeping him together. Hiromu is, becoming a little more injury prone. And if we could just get some fresh bodies in to just give these guys, even if it's like one night off, and to just preserve things so we're not in the state that we are right now.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned strong guys going over, and I think one of the guys that obviously we would have wanted to go over that now won't is Chris Dickinson, after he suffered quite a nasty hip injury at Battle in the Valley this past weekend. Looks like he's going to be out for at least 5 to 6 months before he gets back into a ring, which is a great shame. And if I remember right, he lost his father just a few days before as well. The guy's been through the ringer over the last week. We send our thoughts out to him, and we hope he recovers quickly, because Chris Dickinson, from the time I've been watching Strong, he's been one of the guys that's really stood out for me. Is he someone that's kind of stood out for you? Are you a bit of a fan of Dickinson?
Yeah, I've not watched a lot of Strong. I just don't have the time to, even though it's a quick hour. But obviously had been watching Strong for what we're doing today. And yeah, Dickinson is one of those guys that's head and shoulders above that roster. And I think somebody that would get over insanely easy if he can make it over to Japan. I know he's done some stuff in Japan before, but I think if we could get him in a New Japan ring, I think the sky is the limit with Dirty Daddy. And then also there is a GoFundMe floating around on the interwebs. I know Kevin Kelly has retweeted it. I think the Super J Cast retweeted the link to kind of help. I think so, to help offset, just kind of loss of income. Because obviously all he's going to be focusing on for these 5 to 6 months is getting back to be able to get back in the ring. So if you've got a couple coins you can throw his way, I'm sure he would greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, I think if you're struggling to find it, have a look on Brody King's Twitter feed. I think that's where he's obviously been pushing it. Brody being his tag team partner and obviously quite a close pal with him, has been pushing the GoFundMe. So it's definitely worth dropping a few quid or dollars their way. I suppose we should move on to the wrestling, really, shouldn't we? I mean, we're being kind of semi-employed to talk about New Japan Pro Wrestling for a couple of hours, and I know the anticipation hasn't been that great, is it, for the Best of Super Juniors in the World Tag League? I mean, have you really been looking forward to these tournaments? Be honest.
No, it's one of those things where normally, kind of linking back with Eric's question from a little bit earlier, normally I would not be watching World Tag League. I would take that as kind of my little month off to focus on some other things. I work in retail, so I'm starting to gear up for the holiday season. So I'm trying to focus more in that area. So normally I would not be watching World Tag League. I might be catching some matches that people would be going, hey, this match was really good, you got to see it. Well, then I might carve out the time to pull that specific match up, but not must see for me. When Best of the Super Juniors normally sits in its normal time slot, then I'm not getting up live to watch that like I am the G1, but I would be at least following it and trying to catch the different nights on demand afterwards in the evening. This go around, if I was not doing this podcast, I would not have been watching these shows. And it's no slight on the guys participating. It's much like the G1. It is what it is. Everyone is clearly trying to do their best and to show out and to make it meaningful. And I've got no complaints in that regards. It just is what it is. And we'll definitely get into this, I'm sure, more when we actually talk about, especially World Tag League, where that is just, half those teams are probably not in there if we could get other teams in, especially since half of those teams at least have one person that doesn't bump. I took bump counts. And you'll be surprised that Makabe actually took more flat back bumps than Fale.
Wow.
Yeah. A whole whopping 2 to Fale's 1.
You know what? So, considering the World Tag League, I think we all kind of rate that lower than the Best of Super Juniors. So we talk that one World Tag League night that this kind of podcast will cover. We'll get that out of the way first, so then we can move on to the bigger and better things of the Best of Super Juniors and then over to the US. Yeah, how's that?
Works for me.
Excellent. Okay, well, we'll come back to the Young Lions, I think, because there's, over the 3 nights, we've seen, 3 different Young Lions all facing off against each other. And I think we'll come back to that in a minute because one of them's really stood out for me. So the World Tag League, it was night 2 of this tournament on the 14th of November. And so we had 6 matches, 12 teams. And the opening match, at least of the tournament, was probably my favourite of the night. It was Taka Michinoku making his grand return to a New Japan ring alongside Minoru Suzuki taking on Dangerous Tekkers, their Suzuki-gun stablemates. Dangerous Tekkers won after 18 minutes, 44 seconds. Taichi knocking out Taka Michinoku. For me, this match, I love the fact that it's the same faction, but they were just beating 10 bells of shit out of each other. From the start, from the get-go, no hesitation, just beating the crap out of each other. And it also felt as though it was like a reinitiation for Taka. He was getting put through all of the tasks. He was the one taking the brunt of the workload or getting beaten up the most. And especially at the end as well, it really felt like they were kind of making sure that he got put through the ringer to earn his spot back in Suzuki-gun. What do you think?
I am just so mad this wasn't the main event. I was sitting there watching it, and about halfway through, I was just like, why is this not the main event? I understand why it wasn't the main event, because you want to bring Naito back and have Naito have his moment. But yeah, this was definitely, for me, the best match of the night. I was not expecting to have these moments of Suzuki screaming at Taka to get back up and to fight. And it shows kind of the family nature of Suzuki-gun, as twisted as that is. I just love this match. Some of the things I took away is when is Dangerous Tekkers getting their own tag theme? Because they're one of the few tag teams in the World Tag League that is in New Japan as a whole that's an actual proper tag team. It's not just 2 singles guys thrown together. They're a proper tag unit. They're your tag champs. Why can we not get them their own tag theme?
That's kind of part of their selling point, though, isn't it? When you look at Zack and Taichi. Taichi's entrance with his miming and Miho Abe alongside him, and that's all him. And to kind of merge that with Zach's kind of, I don't know, kind of hard to describe it when he walks in and he's, pops his collar and he's just like, look, motherfuckers, I'm on my own. I'm going to beat the fuck out of everyone. I think that I prefer them coming out individually. I have to disagree with you on that one. I just think they both have their own distinct personalities. And whilst Dangerous Tekkers is a fantastic tag team, and I know a lot of people are behind them, but they are still two individual personalities. They don't. I don't know. They're not as. What's the word I'm looking for? I know they don't merge, if that makes sense. They still need to be split in my eyes.
No, I get that. They don't have that level of synergy that, say, God has. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, I think there's a way that you could work both their distinct entrances and styles and still have it be like a one-unit deal. I know that's not like a major issue. That's just one of those things that just gets up my craw at this point, is I would just like to see that. And especially because you keep giving them tag champ runs. That's just a me thing. Also, I didn't realize how much I missed Suzuki Gun shithousery. and this was obviously replete in that. But just missing Suzuki, just beating guys nine shades of blue, and everybody flinging everybody into every barricade and everything. I love Taka's entrance when he takes his towel off and he has the same kind of look that the rest of us probably had of what the fuck am I doing here?
Yep.
And then you're right. It definitely felt like him getting jumped back in to the group. And then, like I said at the end, just kind of that, for lack of a better term, that wholesomeness of them willing him on and asking him to get back up and to keep fighting. And then Suzuki, I'm presuming, having like a dad talk of, okay, the prodigal son is back home. He's one of us. We're all, at the end of the day, Suzuki-gun.
Yeah, that's definitely the feeling I got from it. It was quite wholesome in a way, which you wouldn't necessarily suggest anything to do with Minoru Suzuki is wholesome.
No, but that's the weird dichotomy of Suzuki-gun, is that, you've got this ass-kicking stable that will just fuck you up. But then with each other, it's a very family thing. Taichi always hopping into a ring post-match if he's been on comms, when it's either, Zach at Power Struggle in defeat or Despy in defeat at the anniversary show, and supporting them and being there. And they all do that for one another. And definitely it's an odd family, but there's probably the most family vibe of them out of all the stables. I think maybe to a degree even more so than LIJ. Because at least Suzuki-gun helps each other out when they get beat down.
Yeah, LIJ tend to sit back, and you never see them kind of coming out and rushing to anyone's aid, which I've always kind of... And it's not just them that do it. There's quite a few factions, and it always confuses the hell out of me that if your faction mate is in there taking absolute beating, why isn't someone else from your faction going out almost immediately to assist? Why do they either not turn up or take ages to make an appearance?
And I'm sure we're going to get into this when we talk a little bit, when we start getting into the matches involving House of Torture guys. But from a kayfabe perspective, it's like, what's going to happen. At some point, Togo's going to show up with the garrote. Mm-hmm. Yujiro's going to show up in his mom jeans. Evil is going to show up as well, or show, depending upon what's going on. Why are you as a faction mate watching, somebody get beat down, not popping out and evening the playing field just a little bit? And it happens on occasion. It happens for the bigger shows. The Naito Evil stuff, that was definitely replete with run-ins and, people finally kind of getting tired of watching their mates get beat down. But I would like to see that on some of these shows. I think if for no other reason, it would freshen these constant run-ins up. If we at least got somebody coming in from the other side, and having a little moment, and then fine, you want to go back to the full shit hazard, you can, but you gotta switch it up, because I'm assuming this is all Togo, and when you think about it, this bitch caught us watching like how many nights of hot bullshit between Best of Super Junior and World Tag League?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot
Every
in there.
night. At least with G1, you had some off nights because Yujiro was not doing this bullshit. But now you don't even have that. Now it's every show you are almost guaranteed like 99.9% hot bullshit.
Yeah. I mean, we'll touch back onto that when we talk about the House of Torture match a little bit further down the card. Because before then, the next match following on from Tekka's was basically a dad's match. We had Yuji Nagata and Tiger Mask take on Tenkozy. Tenkozy won after 10 minutes and 9 seconds after Kojima hit his lariat on Tiger Mask. For me, it just felt it was a match of the dads. They were all able to get kind of like their spots in, and just not really much to say about it. It was just run of the mill. I don't know if you felt any different in that respect.
They're just warm bodies. That's literally why any of these guys are in this World Tag League, especially Tiger Mask. I know apparently the news or the rumor was that it was originally going to be Ibushi and Nagata. And then when Ibushi tore his shoulder up, they put Tiger Mask in. My question to that would be, if you have both Tana and Ibushi in World Tag League, why are you not just doing Golden Aces? But that's another discussion we can maybe have for another time, if that was if that was the plan. My biggest thing is I hate Tiger Mask being in World Tag League as the junior tag champ. I think your champ should always be booked strong and look strong, and that's not going to happen this tournament. You've got your junior tag champ who was going to be eating all the pins, because that's the way New Japan works. The junior's always is 9 times out of 10, unless you got Hanma in your multi-man tag group, is going to be eating the pin, and I kind of hate that. As I'm getting a call from one of my reps, I will totally ignore that. But yeah, it's that was my biggest takeaway is they're warm bodies, they're taking up spaces, and I don't think this does your junior tag champs, or at least one half of them, any favors in the long run.
I completely agree. He's going to be looking the weakest, I think, out of all of those. He's, as you say, he's going to eat the pins pretty much every night. I think if they do pick up a win, it'll be Nagata taking or winning the pinfall. I can't imagine Tiger Mask being booked with any sort of strength over the run of the World Tag League.
I think the only chance he's got is in when they face Suzuki and Taka. Maybe he pins Taka, but I could see Taka pinning Tiger Mask, because apparently we've heard, and I think this is from Voices of Wrestling, the flagship, where apparently Togo has been trying to get Taka back in for a while and was pitching the idea of Taka and Doki as a team for the Little Mini Junior Tag League tournament. So I could see a scenario where Taka pins Tiger Mask, and we get Taka and Doki challenging. What is Robbie and Tiger Mask called? The Flying Tigers,
the Flying Tigers, I think.
Yeah, so I could see that being like a defense for them.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. I mean, it's not something that I'd hate, but I can't say it's something to get excited over either.
No, I mean it would be nice for Doki.
Doki? I call him Doki.
Yeah, Doki. I don't know why I almost did Dookie there, but apologies. But no, I mean it'd be nice for Doki, to give him something to do and a little reward for being there, especially for the last 3 years, stepping in. and being I called him the junior king of Corkin, which we'll get into when we talk about Best of the Super Junior. But yeah, so that's I think Tiger Mask's best bet is that Suzuki-Gun matchup, and I'm not even sure that happens.
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, we've still got a long way. At least after today, we don't have to watch every single episode, and we can always just kind of pop back in if someone gives us a decent match to watch. The next match on the card, Honma and Makabe against God. God won after 14 minutes with Tama using a gun stun on Honma. Again, not really much I can say about this one. I loved how Tama was against Okada in the singles match the other week. I think he's got great potential as a singles wrestler. In a way, I'm slightly disappointed to see him back in a tag, but I know that's where his bread is buttered. There's not much really from me on that one. I know you said you took a bump count when it comes to this one.
Yeah, I mean, because that's always kind of the fun thing with Makabe, to see how many bumps he's going to take. And, he took 2 flat bumps. He was barely in the match. Hanma took most of the offense and was in for the majority of the match. And we know just how not mobile Hanma is. So I give great props to God for making that match work. And at least trying to do something with Hanma, and God bless Hanma for keep showing up, because I would probably stay home if I was him and stay with my newborn child. But Hanma keeps coming and he keeps fighting and he keeps trying his best. And I had the note of trying to make chicken salad out of chicken feet in this match, as far as God was concerned, and trying to make this an engaging match, and at least make it a gentleman's 3, if nothing else. And yeah, I mean, I'm not doing flakes normally, but yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, at 14 minutes, it was longer than I expected it when it comes to Honma and Makabe in there. Especially when you look at some of the other matches that have gone less. But yeah, so there's it was all right. I'm not going to kind of I won't be giving out any star ratings. I've in the past I've made my feelings clear. I just think it's all obviously. I can't. You know what? My mind has gone blank on the word now. But yeah, what could be 3 stars to me is for like 1 star to someone else, and too many people get too hung up on that sort of thing. So yeah, I tend to stay clear of that one. The next match on the card, I've got nothing to really say about either. Chase Owens and Bad Luck Fale taking on the United Empire of Great O'Khan and Aaron Hanare. Fale won with a grenade launcher on Hanare after 9 minutes and 13 seconds. Anything grab you on this one?
Fale took 1 bump, which again, hey, Fale getting on the plane, so I've got no complaints on that. I feel so bad for O'Khan. I understand why Cobb went back to the States. Cobb's been in Japan for a very long time. I've got no problem with Cobb spending some time back home and taking some indie dates and working strong. But because the faction is so small, and you've got Will, who will finally be getting on a plane for Wrestle Kingdom, and then you've got Hanare. For me, that's probably one of the great disappointments of this year, and that O'Khan's development has slightly been stymied by the inability or the unwillingness of Will to get on a plane, and then Hanare having that injury time. So for the most of the latter half of this year, O'Khan has really not had much to do, which is kind of sad, because I like him. I know he's somewhat divisive among the fan base, especially if you're a follower of Meltzer. But I like him a lot. I think he's stuck with Hanare. I like him better with Cobb. And then
Khan on the Cobb is a much better tag team than O'Khan and Hanare.
Yeah, and what are we doing with Hinare? Hinare has just basically traded one faction pin eating job for another faction pin eating job. I don't see any development in him. I know it's still kind of early days with him in United Empire, but it does nothing for me. And the fact that he's sitting here eating the pin just kind of shows to me what his role is probably going to be in this faction.
Yeah, it is a shame. I think Hanare has got a lot of talent. I think he showed that when he was a young lion way back when. But obviously his injury history has really hindered him, and then he is now just seen as the pin eater, which is it's a disappointment, and it is a shame because I thought there was a lot of potential there. Next up for the card was the House of Torture. Here we go. Evil and Yujiro against Tanahashi and Yano. Yano won with after 12 minutes and 16 seconds by rolling up Yujiro. For me, I mean, it's an odd partnership, Tanahashi and Yano, but I loved that they came out with the same blazers, and Tanahashi's hair it was something to behold. I thought this was in a way, it was a perfect match to get the House of Torture bullshit out of the way. And just to have it, night one, do it, and then fuck off. But we know we're going to get it every night until the end of the tournament. But I think when you've got the House of Torture going up against Yano, you know there's going to be some back and forth shithousery. This match, I can deal with it because of, as I say, Yano on the other side. But it's when the House of Torture start facing people like Naito and Sanada and Yoshihashi and Goto and God, when the shithousery just needs to. I get tired of it very quickly.
Can you imagine the shithousery when they're facing like GBH, Tenkozy, Tiger Mask and Nagata? I call them Tiger Justice, or Blue Tiger. But can you imagine the shithousery in those matches and how?
I'd rather not.
Right. For me, a perfect representation of what I think of House of Torture overall is the end of that match when Evil, Yujiro, and Togo are all on the outside just holding their nuts after the triple nut shot. Because I think that's all of us, where we're all experiencing mental nut shots every time we watch one of these matches. My thing was also, are we getting 9 Tana comedy matches?
It'll be a shame if we do, but I think that's going to be it, though, isn't it? I can't see it. Yano can put on a serious match if he really wanted to, but in a tournament like the World Tag League, I don't think it's expected.
So I mean, I don't know how I get it. Again, we need warm bodies, but I'm not. I would like to see Tana do a little bit more. And again, I don't know if we're going to get golden aces. That would, beg the question of how you book them in this tournament and what you're doing with them. Because also my question in regards to Tana is, what is his program now for Wrestle Kingdom?
Yeah, because he dropped the US title, didn't he?
Yeah, so he drops the US title to Kenta. Mm-hmm. And an argument can be made that maybe they were trying to work out a Tana Mox match, which is most likely 99.9% not happening now, if it even was on the potential cards, with Mox going into rehab. And side note, obviously, good on Mox for realizing he had a problem and for dealing with it, and wishing all the best for him and Renee and their daughter, and working through this. And I'm sure Mox is going to come back stronger than ever. But now we've got some of these questions of, what are some people doing when we thought maybe there might have been certain programs with him coming down, the not too distant future.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, we can fantasy book and try and kind of give Tanahashi something, leading up to Wrestle Kingdom, but I have a feeling that it's, I don't know. I suppose I've not really looked at where he's going to end up. I just, the guy is a big name. He's one of the biggest names in New Japan, and he's got a storied history. He deserves to give something, like to be given something that has meaning. And I suppose I worry that he's not going to get that.
No, I don't. I mean, we've got 3 nights, but I mean, I look at him being paired with Yano, and I don't see where you go from there right now. That's my major issue with the Yano Tana tag team is I just, Yano will be doing his, KOPW bullshit. I'm not worried about him. It's Tana that I'm sitting here going, okay, you're trapped in this comedy tag team for World Tag League to, again, fill bodies, but what are we doing with you down the line? Because we got to do something with you.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's the other big names are going to, I mean, Naito's still, he's just come back from his injury. What's he going to be doing? Are they going to put him in a program with Tanahashi maybe? Or do you put, I don't know, do you stick him against someone like Goto or Ishii maybe because of his never open weight win over in San Jose this past weekend? There's always that, I suppose.
There is, and I think this is a nice lead into what was the main event on the card, which is LIJ versus Goto Yoshihashi. Because then my question is, who's winning World Tag League? Is there a chance that you have Naito and Sonata win it to give Naito something to do at Wrestle Kingdom?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, or do they go with the old faithful and give it to God?
I'm of 2 minds. Part of me wants them to give it to God. Again, as a thank you for getting on the plane as often as they have, and for them and Dangerous Techers being kind of the foundation that has been propping up this tag division since the pandemic started last year. So I would not hate seeing God Techers again at the Dome. And I think especially now, with what I hope is renewed confidence in both Tangaloa and Tama Tonga after their G1 runs, to see how that will manifest in a title match against Techers. I wouldn't mind seeing. I wouldn't hate it. But again, on the flip side, if they give it to Naito and Sonata, I've got no problems with that either. Because again, what are you doing with these guys at Wrestle Kingdom if you don't give them Tag League?
Yeah. But I am worried for Wrestle Kingdom. I mean, especially with the 3 nights, it's that they're going to fill it with a load of crap, as well as the kind of the big things, and I suppose that does concern me. Let's see. Sorry, going to the main event, which was as you said, Yoshihashi and Goto versus Naito and Sanada. So Naito and Sanada won this after 18 minutes 21 seconds after Naito hit the Destino on Yoshihashi. I expected Sanada to take the lead in this one following Naito's return from injury, but Naito took a lot of the action, and of course securing the pin. So I was completely wrong. This isn't a match that I suppose I pay too much attention to, because it's got 2 guys in it that I've got I just no feelings about, no care for. I don't. Yoshihashi and Sanada both kind of. I know Yoshihashi has improved in a lot of people's eyes, but to me, he's still the old bag of socks, proverbially, and Sanada's just, he's a bit meh for me. So it was a solid match, but nothing special, nothing to write home about. And as you said earlier, I think the Suzuki-Gun match should have been the main event.
Yeah, I mean, Sonata for me, I think Sonata is a great tag wrestler. I don't like him as a singles. We talked about this last week when we kind of got together privately. about what we thought, how we thought the end sequence was going to go, and we both thought it was going to be Sonata and Yoshihashi in the battle of shitty submission moves, and Yoshihashi just bleeding like a goat as he's putting on the butterfly lock. So I was a little shocked too that Naito was as in the action, which I guess he has to be because you got to get the ring rust off of him. What I noticed was that, yeah, he was in a lot of it, but it's not like they really made his knee do a lot of work. He had a couple of moves where I was kind of, giving the knee a little workout, but for the most part, he was kind of getting beaten down and taking a lot of the offense. So I don't, which again is fine. Ease him back in, and you just have to keep him healthy, because if he goes down again, and then we're talking about being worried about Wrestle Kingdom, he goes down again. Now you're looking at a Wrestle Kingdom with possibly without Ibushi and without Naito, and that's just not going to work on any level.
No, and I dread to think of him getting injured again. Yeah, it's not an optimal, not a very exciting prospect, is it? Really, a Wrestle Kingdom without him or Ibushi or anyone else that may get injured on the way in.
Yeah, I mean, and New Japan can't afford it. We know Will is showing up. We don't know who else. Like, I don't trust Finjuice to show up, and we'll get into that more when we get into to Battle in the Valley. But I'm not anticipating them showing up.
No, me neither. Okay, so I think we can move away from the World Tag League now and concentrate on the 2 nights of Best of Super Juniors. Given how we've gone through match by match on the World Tag League and how long it's taken us, I'm looking at the time pointedly. I think if we just have we look at each wrestler. Obviously, everyone's had 2 matches, and we can just give our assessment, I suppose, on how we think they've done. If that's okay with you.
Yeah, that works.
So I think we'll start off with my list here. We'll start off with Bushi, who he lost against Doki on the first night, and on the third night of the tournament, he beat Taguchi. So to me, Bushi's, I see him as Mr. Consistent. I do see him as quite underrated. I am a fan of him. I did have, up until recently, I had one of his masks, actually, and I wore it to Wrestle Kingdom 12. But yeah, I believe that Bushi can give us, he's always solid and will always give us a decent match, and I think he gave that in both the opening match against Doki and then later on against Taguchi. But yeah, so he's currently sitting on 2 points after 1 win.
Could you imagine, though, how good Bushi would be and enjoyable to watch if he put as much effort into his wrestling as he does his masks?
Those masks are spectacular.
I mean, night 2, he's coming out with a mask that's like spitting out smoke. But then he wrestles the way he wrestles, and it's fine. He's solid. To me, he's not anything spectacular. He can go when he gets that tap on the shoulder. You put him in a match for the title, and he's going to deliver, and it's going to be something enjoyable. But for me, and something like Best of the Super Junior, he's just there. He's there for the numbers game. And I can take or leave him.
Right. Okay. No, that's fair enough. I know that seems to be the general opinion of quite a few people when it comes to Bushi. And so I'd like to see him do well. But yeah, it's as you say with the masks, they do look so incredibly detailed when he's coming out with those, like the smoke and the lights and things like that. He just needs to elevate his game to that level. So next up is Doki. He is currently sitting on 4 points following 2 wins. As mentioned, he beat Bushi on the first night, and on the third night he beat Yo. So Doki, the Suzuki Goon, standing as he was when because he took a come in after Despy injured himself a couple of years back. I can't really find much fault with Doki. He gets the job done, and he does it well. He does what he does well, and I have no complaints about it. What about yourself?
For me, the biggest shock is Doki sitting at 4 points. I would not have bet money that he would be atop the leaderboard. And I also think this is a bit of a representation of people not watching Best of the Super Juniors, and that this is not being talked about of where he's sitting on the leaderboard in relation to guys like Hiromu and Desperado and other people in this field. And I don't know what this is leading to. If this is, I know Joel kind of tweeted out on the Super J-Cast Twitter feed, I'm sure very jokingly, tongue-in-cheek, that Doki was getting that Cobb push. I would not have a problem with Doki getting a Cobb push if that ended up actually being the case. I don't think it is. But that, for me, with Doki right now, that's the biggest takeaway, is that he is sitting atop the leaderboard. Along with Sho, who obviously we'll get to a little bit later. But yeah, Doki does his job. Great opening matches, a lot of fire, a lot of great spots, everything you kind of want to see or expect from a Best of the Super Juniors. You're getting it with Doki.
Exactly, yeah. And we actually had a question on Twitter about Doki from Definite One on Twitter. Did you notice Doki's colour scheme? Normally I wouldn't think anything of it, but he was fighting Yo on the second night whilst wearing the House of Torture colours. Is this foreshadowing something? Jesus, I hope not. You know what? I think it's just a coincidence. I think, everyone, purple is a lovely colour. It's one of my favourites. So he just, I think it's just a coincidence that he was in the same colours as House of Torture. I know New Japan do like their little nods and things to look back on, but I think this is going a bit too deep, don't you?
I hope that's the case. And he rocked the same colors night one, so that I didn't notice that both nights. But
Breathe.
Right. Well, it's that, you never know with New Japan, right? And especially right now, they've got their, House of Torture has their junior in show. And I think Doki is tight enough with Desperado outside of the ring and that whole Suzuki-gun faction. I don't see it happening. But again, I think if anything that the last 18 months or so has taught us is not to completely discount anything.
Yeah, anything can happen. Actually, so we mentioned Sho being the House of Torture's junior. Let's talk about him. So he's also on 4 points after 2 wins. The first night beating El Desperado, and on the second night beating Hiromu. For me, I think the first night against Despy, I was really enjoying this match. It was a great main event, and we'd gone, I think, nearly 20 minutes before we actually got any interference from Dick Togo and Yujiro. So I was like, maybe we're actually going to get a full-on great match here. And no, the shithousery happened, as I should have expected it, really. Should have known better. But I know Sho, his power seems to be shining through, and his strength. He almost looks too big to be a junior at the moment. He's looking more heavyweight to me. I don't know about you, but yeah, he's currently sitting top with 4 points.
Yeah, I don't know about heavyweight Sho. I know that's a thing that Damon and a lot of people have been banging on, is moving Sho up to heavyweight. I'm not in that camp, mainly because I think Sho would get lost in the heavyweight division. Mm-hmm. And I don't think the junior division right now can take any more losses, especially if we think in a year or two maybe Hiromu moves up, which I don't agree with it either. But this is what I wanted to see from Show is tapping more into his grapple stuff, into that MMA, because I think the junior division needs kind of a grapple fucker.
Mm-hmm.
And I was loving both matches, both this and the Hiromu match. I think the Best of Super Junior match with Hiromu was better than their Castle Attack match. I was thoroughly enjoying both of them, and then the bullshit happens and just completely ruins the match. And I get why they're doing that. You know, you've got to establish this faction, establish Show as, you know, being part of this faction. As we talked about a little bit earlier, I think there are better ways that you could get your shithousery in and still have a really good match. And I think that's going to hurt Show down the line. And I fear that Show's going to get slotted the way that we slot Evil now, is that it's just go away, almost at that go away heat level. If you notice in both matches when the bullshit starts, that crowd goes deadly silent, especially in the Desperado match, where they don't make a sound once that all happens. And in the Desperado match, where it's Marty counting the 3-pin, you could hear a pin drop when that happens. And that was very similar in the Hiromu match. There's a little bit of noise because they were clapping for Hiromu, trying to get him back up on his feet and hope that he could overcome this. Obviously he doesn't. And I think that's the crowd's way of showing their displeasure. Mm-hmm. I know that on Japanese Twitter, there is definite angst over this and unhappiness. And there's always a discourse about Togo and what he's brought to the company as presumably a member of the booking committee. And my thing is that, yes, it sucks and it's miserable, but on the flip side, people are still buying the merch. You see the towels, you see the signs. And until that dries up, we're going to keep getting this bullshit because it's connecting with some people on some level and it's making the company money. Once it stops making the company money, that's when we will be, hopefully, knock on wood, free of the hot mess that we're dealing with now.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Crossed that comes sooner rather than later. Actually, speaking of shithousery, that kind of brings me perfectly on to the next person on my list, El Phantasmo. So he's currently sitting on 0 points, having lost to Master Wato on the first night and then losing to Kanemaru on night 3. For me, though, the shithousery that El Phantasmo does, it works. It's the right amount of shithousery. He's there taking the piss. He's there trying to wind people up, but it doesn't negatively impact the match whereas the House of Torture shit, it ruins a match. Phantasmo's just there to be a wind up, and obviously it's not working for him because he's lost both of his matches. But I am a fan of El Phantasmo and the old Headband Club. But yeah, currently sitting on no points at all. Are you surprised by that?
Very surprised, especially the way he's, we're talking about a 2-time Super J Cup winner, and he's sitting here at 0 points. Obviously, it's very early days, and I could see where his booking is kind of like that typical G1 booking where you've got the guy that takes, 2 to 3 losses at the start and then just goes on a run to get into the finals. But what I've also noticed, and not only with him, but with Ishimori and with GOD, is that they're, and to a degree also Fale and Chase, is that all the main Bullet Club bullshit has been significantly turned down. Mm-hmm. We saw very little of it outside of Kenta in G1. And so far, between these 2 nights of Best of the Super Juniors and 1 night of World Tag League, there's been little to no bullshit among the Bullet Club faction members. GOD did their match straight, clean. Fale and Chase was no real bullshit. Ishimori has been really no bullshit. And ELP's bullshit has been turned down to like low, as opposed to say the beginning of the year or even during his Super J Cup runs where it was just at max peak levels and annoying the hell out of everybody. And I think a lot of that has to do with House of Torture. I think House of Torture is going to be our main bullshit shithousery faction. And so to at least not give us nothing but bullshit, I think our Bullet Club guys have been told to just take it down a bunch of notches and, have a little bit of it. Mainly ELP's is now just the loaded boot, which I love. I can't wait for the day, probably years from now, when we will finally get that boot revealed and get him busted. But that's a kind of an interesting deal of people trying to like suss him out on the boot and work around it. But I'm definitely surprised right now that he's sitting at no points.
Yeah, and there's another guy as well that I'm surprised is sitting on 0 points. I mean, I think Phantasma will probably pick up a win quite quickly, as the tournament progresses. The same goes for El Desperado, who, as I say, currently sitting on 0 points, having lost to Show in the main event on the first night, and then in the, I think it was the main event on the second night as well, lost against Taiji Ishimori. So Desperado, again, is someone who, he always delivers for me. But yeah, it's just disappointing and surprising that he's sitting on 0 points. I think that will change very quickly. Are you fully behind Despy, or is he one of those guys that you're maybe not necessarily too keen on?
I've fully gotten behind Despy now. I'm all aboard the Despy train. Yeah, it's Despy is doing his job. He's putting on great main events. He's been really the pillar of the division during the pandemic, with Hiromu being injured for large chunks of it. Mm-hmm. He's been really the guy that's been holding it and holding it down. I loved both his matches. We've talked about the show one. I love the Ishimori. For me, the Ishimori match right now is match of the tournament between the two nights. That is the match where I would, if somebody said, "Hey, Nicole, what should I watch from Best of the Super Junior?" It's Ishimori El Desperado. I had in my notes, I was literally writing down that, it's like match of the tournament for me so far, right as Despy was tapping. And then I just have in like caps and exclamation points tap, because I was not expecting him to tap.
No. I think I was expecting. I mean, with the disappointment, I suppose, against Show and the shithousery that comes with the House of Torture, I was hoping that second time around, when he was taking on Ishimori, that he'd be able to kind of shine through and pick up that win. But surprising that he did lose again, but. That's nothing against Ishimori, because I think he's another established junior who will always put on a decent showing, and in a way it's kind of good that we're talking about that. As I said, I think that is I'll probably agree with you that that's my match of the tournament so far. But so actually, before we move on, I just realised we had a question on Twitter about Despy, which I think we've kind of answered anyway. But with Despy having 2 losses now as the champ, where do you think things go for him? Also, do you think we'll get a Super J Cup running on strong like last year from Bash? As far as I'm concerned, I would say we're probably not going to get a Super J Cup running on strong yet, because otherwise I think it would have been announced, given how they do the shows, because they would be recording it, on a big kind of set of 2 or 3 shows back to back. But if that comes, then I'd wait for the announcement. But if it's going to be this year, I have a feeling it would have been announced already. But yeah, I think we answered the Despy thing, don't you?
Yeah, I don't anticipate him winning Best of the Super Junior. On a side note, I've noticed that So the only two people that are actively in the tournament that have ever won Best of the Super Juniors is Hiromu with his 2 wins and Taguchi with his win in 2012. No one else in the tournament has won. And my question would be, who do you give the win to? We're all sitting here expecting it to be Hiromu for his 3rd win. We get Hiromu and Despy at Wrestle Kingdom, which is a Wrestle Kingdom worthy main match, maybe even a main event. Definitely semi-main. I would not have a problem with it. But on the flip side, what are you doing to build that division if you give it to Hiromu again?
It's the same faces, isn't it? You need something. You need someone new. But then, who do you give it to? Do you give it to Master Wato? Do you, or do you? I don't know, Kanemaru maybe.
Now, Kanemaru's too old. I love Kanemaru, but he's kind of in that dad status with Taguchi. I am really high on Wato. I know we'll get to Wato shortly. He's only 24 though. He's got time. I would almost say give it to Sho.
Ooh, controversial.
It is. But you've got to make some new stars in this division, especially if the plans are to move Hiromu up. You need to have established other people. And right now, besides Hiromu and Desperado, who else in that division are you looking at and going, he's a guy I could tap on the shoulder to hold the strap and to main event and to do some things. Now, they've done it with Ishimori, and you could definitely go back to Ishimori. I don't see Ishimori winning a Best of the Super Junior, though. Doki, I don't think they're going to give it to. Yo, I don't know what they're doing with Yo. We'll get to Yo. I look at that and go, if you're not giving it to Hiromu, you're giving it to Sho. And you're using that to elevate him and to build and to start building this division and making some new stars.
Yeah, something needs to be switched up. You mentioned Ishimori in there, and you don't believe he'll win, or you don't see him as a Best of Super Juniors winner. He is currently sitting on 2 points, having lost to Kanemaru on night 1 by count out, and then beating El Desperado night 2. We've already talked about the night 2 match. When we spoke last week, just as a kind of catch up before this podcast, obviously the history between Ishimori and Kanemaru was something that you've mentioned, and their match last year or in the with no crowds in disappointed you a bit. I just wanted to kind of get that onto the podcast, really, if you'd like to talk about that again.
Yeah, I mean, it's not too deep. I'm not a major Noah fan, so I'm not going to try and pretend that I'm like some great Noah historian, but Kanemaru and Ishimori do have that history in Noah. I think if we factor in the match in the Best of the Super Junior that we just had, I think the stat is like 12-2 in Kanemaru's favor. He was always a thorn in Ishimori's side in Noah, and that was the big thing leading into that New Japan Cup match was, that thing hanging over them of Ishimori having never beaten Kanemaru. And then it happens in an empty arena, which I thought was just a horrible way to give away that win. And for that to finally happen, that should have happened at least in front of fans and to make that a little more meaningful. But on the flip side, I don't really expect New Japan to fully respect other promotions' history. That's not... They don't have to do it. They're not under any obligation. They just want to put on what they think are good matches and get the results that they need to get you to the next level. It's the same thing with Omega and Ibushi, where everybody was like, oh, but you've got to respect this history that they've had in DD.
At Simple Mobile, you get the no contract advantage. Those other mobile companies make you think you're in control, but you're really not. Simple Mobile is different. You can get a powerful nationwide 5G network all without a contract. It's the reliability you need when you need it, with no mystery fees, no activation fees, and no contract ever. Simple Mobile. Out with the old, in with the simple. 5G capable device and SIM required. Actual availability, coverage, and speed may vary. 5G network not available in all areas. 5G upload speeds not yet available.
Here's to getting back together. To planned lunches and unplanned cookouts. To grandma's recipes and smells that take us back. To passing down plates and traditions. Here's to warm embraces and familiar faces. To your best friends, becoming best friends. To scheming, dreaming, and food still steaming. Here's to laughter and love. To growing closer than ever. For all of life's get-togethers. Chinette, here's to us.
DDT, and New Japan was like begging them to give them the match. And finally, we finally got it in that G1 because it actually fit historically with it being in Budokan and being around date-wise the 6-year anniversary of the match at Budokan. But then they gave it to us again in a horrible 3-way with Cody. So that's kind of further proof that New Japan doesn't really respect or care about the history of feuds from other promotions. Mm-hmm. They just want to get matches on a card that they think are going to pop and put butts in seats, and that's entirely their right to do so.
Yeah.
But I love Ishimori. I think he suffers to a degree the same fate as Kenta, in that people want the old Kenta, people want the old Ishimori, and you're just not going to get that now. You're getting something different. But I love what we're getting with Ishimori. Ishimori can still go, still a little ball of fire. He can still flip off things, still do things, and you get that grapple element. And that's what I really liked going back to the Desperado match, and that it was just a battle of who can injure the other's limb enough to make that submission, to make their submission move be the one that wins.
Yeah, it told the story well, didn't it? That Ishimori Despy match. I was fully on board for the Despy one, but sadly for me, I knew that how the result was going to go because I'd seen the question on Twitter before seeing the actual show. So I was slightly spoiled on that one.
Yeah, no, I got lucky on that. I was completely unspoiled. And again, I think that's a representation of people not watching these shows, because that should have been, and I think if this had happened like pre-pandemic, if this happens in 2019, I think everybody's talking about it. And no one is talking about this. I saw nothing.
Yeah, it's just, as you say, people just aren't watching it at the moment, and it's a shame because there is some quality there. I know you've got to pick and find it, but yeah, it's a shame. Actually, moving on to the next one, we'll talk about Kanemaru, who's currently sitting on 4 points, having wins against Ishimori and against El Fantasmo on the third night. As you said, Kanemaru is too old really to win the Best of Super Juniors, but he is the old hand who's going to get the job done, isn't he? He's not going to disappoint. He's not going to put in a stinker. He's there to make up the numbers and help move things in the right direction, isn't he?
Yeah, and he's what I loved with the ELP match. It was just basically a battle of whose shithousery is better, and in this case, it was the old dog, triumphing over the young pup, and it's just basically you've got some bullshit up your sleeves, but I've been doing this a lot longer than you have, so. And that was great. But yeah, he's there to make the numbers. You're going to get good matches out of him, and just a solid hand. And maybe he gets a pin over Robbie, and then we can set up another potential, Suzuki-gun, Flying Tigers defense as well. Somewhere down the line, provided that they're holding the titles after Wrestle Kingdom, which I'm not even sure if that's going to be a thing.
Yeah, we won't go down that rabbit hole. Excuse me. So moving on to the next one, then we'll have a look at Master Wato, or Wato. For me, so the guys are currently sitting on 2 points, having beaten El Fantasmo on the first night and then losing to Robbie Eagles on the third night. Wato has come on in leaps and bounds for me. The guy is looking so much more confident. He's looking so much more at ease. And I even wrote during his match against Robbie Eagles, I've written down that he looks like he belongs. You know, it's the Master Wato that was there when we first saw him. He's miles away from the Wato that we're seeing now in the Best of Super Juniors. The guy's putting it on and doing really well. I'm fully behind him now. I'm getting on the Wato train. What about yourself?
I love Watto now. I think at this point, if you're shitting on Watto, that is kind of equal to people that are still shitting on Tai Chi. You're just not watching, and you just have, or you're watching, but you're not really taking it in because you've got these preconceived notions, and you're just refusing to see the change. Yeah, Watto does belong now. People forget Watto's young. He just turned 24 not too long ago. He's got a lot of time to develop and to come into his own. His debut did no favors to him. Again, you bring him in during the intermission of a show, and he gets laid out by Doki. He looks like a deer in the headlights. You stuck him with Tenzan, who is like the little league dad you vote most likely to get banned from the playground. They did him no favors. If you've also noticed, he's got a new entrance video now. I think they've changed up the music a little bit. They're turning more and more away from that way of the. I mean, he's still called Way of the Grandmaster, but in terms of the iconography and the video, they've kind of gotten away from that whole wushu stuff that video initially was. I think the time that he has spent with Ibushi, which we know this to be a thing from an interview Ibushi did on NJPW 1972, I think right when he was coming back after Sakura Genesis, and at the time that Watto has spent with him, his kicks look crisper. Everything just has more meat to it. That was one of my notes in the Robbie Eagles match, is that I think a couple years down the line, you're going to be sitting there on commentary going, oh, you should really not be getting into a kicking contest with Watto. Because that shit just looks crisp. It sounded meaty. The palm strikes, not so much. I think he needs to lose the glove because that deadened the sound. So while Robbie's palm strikes, at least had a good sound to them, Watto's did not. Just ditch the glove. I get why it's there, but maybe turn it into a fingerlet. Just do something with it to where it's not muffling those strikes as much as they are. And Watto's a guy that I think could be the future of the division. He does all the flippy stuff that you want to see in a junior match, especially in a junior tournament. It's just a matter of time in getting the matches under him and rebuilding his confidence, because we all know the excursion to CMLL probably didn't go as well as he would have liked. That was the great discourse. Oh my God, what's happened to Watto? What's happened to Watto? He looks horrible down in Mexico. Oh my God. And then he came back and looked like a deer in the headlights. And that discourse just continued. I also noted Watto's getting in shape. He was a little flabby and not as defined on his debut. And now he is definitely getting there. He's starting to get that shape that Tana likes. That kind of reverse triangle. He's definitely, the shoulder areas and the neck is getting built up. You're starting to see the definition of some abs that might be there. So he's definitely taking this seriously and putting in the work to improve.
Yeah, and I did notice what you said about him getting in shape as well. He looked almost on a par with Robbie Eagles when they were going against each other, like physically, which is it's nice to see that he's actually kind of improving, not just with his confidence and that, but physically as well, and as you say, with his kicks and things like that. Actually, his match against Robbie Eagles, we might as well just move straight on to Robbie Eagles, the Sniper of the Sky, currently sitting on 2 2 points after losing on the opening night to Taguchi and then beating Master Watto on night 3. Robbie Eagles, you know what you're going to get. The guy I think he's fantastic, and he's since coming in earlier on this year, or he's coming back at least, like getting on the plane, as you say. He has shone and really kind of kept this division going. And his tag team with Tiger Mask, whilst I was surprised, it's done really well. And then, seeing him in the Best of Super Juniors, I expect him to do well and get at least in the mix towards the end. I think Robbie Eagles is one of the better talents that they've got in the junior division. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not sure what we're doing with Robbie now. I was surprised he lost to Taguchi. And honestly, I think his win over Watto was done in a way to somewhat protect Watto. Because it's just really very similar to the Kanemaru ELP finish, where it's just, okay, Watto was trying to get that sneaky kind of roll up, and Robbie was able to just turn it back around and basically do the same thing and get the pin that time. I love Robbie and the tag team with Tiger Mask. I'm trying to figure out what we're doing with Robbie. Robbie's title reign with the belt felt kind of like a gold watch. Thank you for getting on the plane. Reign, and also, hey, thanks for sticking through Best of Super Juniors last year while your dad was not in the best of health in the Philippines. So I'm not sure what we're doing with him. So yeah, he'll be in the mix. Maybe he wins Best of Super Juniors. I would not put money on it, but at the same time, I would not be surprised. But I don't know if they would want to run that match with Desperado back at Wrestle Kingdom.
No, I think as you're right, I think he'll be in the mix, but I don't see him winning. I don't see him taking that title home when it comes to the Best of Super Juniors. You said you were surprised that he lost to Taguchi. I know I was as well. We can quickly talk about Taguchi because he's a man that I don't think will be in any danger of winning this tournament. Yes, he's picked up a win on night 1 against Robbie Eagles, but then lost to Bushi on night 3. Taguchi he's the comedy man, isn't he? But yet, when it comes to the Best of Super Juniors, he seems to flick a switch and put in decent performances. The guy can go. He just doesn't. He only seems to do it when it comes to Best of Super Junior time.
Well, and I think your notes had him as like the junior Yano.
Yes, yeah.
And yeah, that's because if we remember last year, the only time he really went was the match against Hiromu. And then the rest of the time, yeah, there was a little bit of serious Taguchi, just like you get the occasional serious Yano. But then the rest of the time is the typical Taguchi bum related offense and the weird Nakamura tributes and things like that. And no, Taguchi's in no danger of taking the Best of the Super Junior. He'll be in the mix. He'll probably upset somebody on one of the later nights to even at the points and keep somebody from getting to the finals. He's there. It's fine. Now, I did like in the match with Bushi where in the beginning he was kind of mocking Bushi and aping all of Bushi's little moves. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed that. For the most part, I slot Taguchi with Yano and that I can take or leave him, and most of the time I can leave him.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough, and I think that's an appropriate description, really. And you know what? I'm trying to kind of keep these going in the same. Someone that you say you can take or leave Taguchi is someone that I think we can leave, at least in my opinion, is Yo. He just he's currently sitting on 0 points, losing to Hiromu on the first night and then Doki on the third night. First night it was over within 3 minutes or 4 minutes, sorry, and I thought there was a problem, but then he went 10 minutes with Doki on the third night. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing with Yo. He just looks. I feel that he's lost without his tag team partner, and I just don't see any excitement, I'm afraid, when it comes to those two matches. They fell flat for me, in at least in Yo's corner. Yeah, he just fell flat. I don't know if. Do you feel that he's going to get bigger and better, or is he destined for the doldrums?
I know I've been saying this a lot as we're talking about Best of the Super Juniors, but I don't know what we're doing with Yo. I loved the match at Seibu Dome against Sho. I thought that was great. That's the perfect kind of not full blow off to, your tag team blowing up, but it was a perfect kind of middle of the road match within a long-term feud like that. Mm-hmm. He showed fire. He showed passion. It was great. I had no problem with Sho getting the win in that match. And I was hoping to see some of that fire in the Best of the Super Junior, especially when in Power Struggle, he comes out at the end of the six-man to support his Chaos Brethren and lay a beat down on Sho. I was excited. I'm like, okay, this is what we're getting with Yo. And we've gotten fuck all nothing. And I don't know what the plan is. Are we doing a story of confidence where he's got no confidence? So we're going to sit here and watch him lose, if not all of his matches, the majority of the matches. And then he beats Sho on the final night to maybe keep Sho out of the finals, which could then set up a special singles match at Wrestle Kingdom to maybe very, very similar to Sonata Evil that we got last year, leading into this year's Wrestle Kingdom. I don't know. I hate his gear. It's this weird all virginal white thing. And I don't know what we're doing with him. Between the two, when they were Roppongi 3K, I was way higher on Yo because Yo had the charisma and Yo had the looks and Yo could do things. And, at the time, if you had asked me which of those two, if you break up the tag team, is the guy that you push, I would have gone Yo because of that charisma. And that has all disappeared.
Yeah, it's a shame, isn't it? I mean, he was the potential was there, but it's now that he's on his own, it just feels like, as I say, he's just gone very flat. Just to round up the Best of the Super Juniors, then we come to Hiromu. He is sitting on 2 points, beating Yo, after 4 minutes on the first night, and then losing to Sho by ref stoppage on the third night. I love Hiromu's book of notes when it comes to the Best of Super Junior tournament, and it's great to see that come back again. I enjoyed the match against Sho, but of course the shithousery then started, so we got more of the same crap there. But yeah, Hiromu, reliable hand. Very possibly that, as we discussed earlier, is a good chance that he wins this. Is there anything more really to mention on Hiromu?
No, I loved the Sho match. I loved Sho working on the surgically repaired shoulder. I would have loved if we had gotten a finish that played more into that limb work. That was real interesting. Hiromu's Hiromu. You know what you're going to get. You're going to get high energy. He's going to do some wild stuff. I like junior Hiromu 10 times more than I like trying to be heavyweight Hiromu. I've said earlier that I think I do not agree with the call to push him up to a heavyweight. I think you've got something very special in Hiromu, and that he could be Liger and be the stalwart of your division for his entire career and have that kind of storied career. I don't know if New Japan's going to do that. I think they'll probably just move him up, but I would love it if he stayed a junior his entire career. I think when he moves up to heavyweight, he loses a little something of his specialness because he tries too hard to fit into the New Japan heavyweight main event style, which I don't think really plays to what makes Hiromu special. But on the flip side, I get he's got to change his style if he wants to have any longevity. He can't keep being the full balls to the wall guy, because that eventually is going to end very badly for him, considering the string of injuries he's already had. But yeah, you get what you get with Hiromu. It's always going to be a good time. It's always going to be a good match. There's not one that you can sit there and go, it's an absolute pile of shit. I will say the show match, this one is probably one of my favorite ones that he's done this year. I wasn't too keen on his Wrestle Kingdom stuff. And I definitely did not like the match he had against Sho at Castle Attack. I think that's a prime example of why neither of those guys at this moment should move up to the heavyweight division.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that one. I think I know I said this earlier. A Show looks like a heavyweight for me, and I can see him moving up, but I think you're right in the sense that the junior division needs people like Hiromu, and it needs people like Sho to kind of keep things going, at least until they bring in or build up someone and establishes them as a true competitor.
I mean, Sho's got the look to move up right now. That's another big difference between what has happened to him and Yo since Roppongi 3K broke up, is that Sho's got a definite look and a definite vibe now. I mean, we can make fun of the evil gamer music that he's got now, and we can kind of laugh at his gear because that's also gamer inspired, but it's a look, it's a vibe, and he's leaning into it. And also we can, joke all we want about the funny faces that he's making, but he's taking this opportunity and he's running with it, and he's doing some stuff, and he's trying to differentiate himself, and he's got a definite character and feel and vibe, where kind of just backtracking to Yo doesn't have any of that right now.
Yeah, no, that's I'll get your take on that, and I'm not going to disagree with you, to be honest. So that kind of wraps up our Japanese section.
We haven't really touched about the Young Lions, and you said there's one that's really been standing out for you.
Yeah, you know what? And I've been deleting my notes as I go along. So,
oops.
That was.
I may still have. Let me.
You know what? I've got it here. It's Nakashima.
Yeah.
He's obviously the first two nights he was in a match, and the third night he wasn't, as the way they're doing the rotation, and. He's the one that's impressed me out of all three. I mean, all three look solid. They're young lions. They're going to be consistent in their performances anyway. I mean, all three matches were time limit draws. But yeah, I think at least he's the one that stood out for me over the three nights. The young lions, I think it's a good setup the way they've done this. I know they did it. I think wasn't the G1, was it? It might have been the tournament before, but where they had so you'd have the Young Lion match as the opener, and then straight into the tournament matches, which is what they're doing to that in this tournament. Which have you watched the Young Lion matches as well, and has any of them stood out for you?
Yeah, so I mean, I sat through all three Young Lion matches, and Yuto was my main takeaway as well. I loved his selling of the elbow, which is a very easy thing, obviously, for him to do, but I love that he was leaning into it. I love that the other Young Lions were working on that, and just kind of showing that continuity. He's a standout for me. I mean, they're all full of piss and vinegar. And if anything, I would say it's Kosei that is the least pissy and vinegary. He's got fire, but he's not imprinting on me the way that Yuto and Oiwa are imprinting. And I that's the thing with Young Lions, though, is that, especially this early on, it's just, what connection they're making with the crowd, because they can do the Boston Crabs, they can do the drop kicks. They've got all the fundamentals, but it's your selling and your emotion in creating that connection with the crowd to cheer for you when you're getting put into that Boston Crab.
Yeah, and I think, all three of these young lions, Oiwa, Kosei, and Yuto Nakashima, they're all of the same, similar sort of level. It's just, I think it's a good way to open the show. The fans are starting to buy into to seeing these guys, and I've got to say, the Young Lion kind of set up, the way it's done, I'm fully behind it. I love it. I love the way that New Japan do it and bring these guys through, send them on excursion and see them kind of improve. And I'll touch on that as we go into the strong stuff as well, because obviously there's Yuya Uemura and Ren Narita doing things over in the States. I love the Young Lion project, I suppose, is what you could call it.
Yeah.
So that was the Young Lions. Okay. So I think that is. Is there anything else you want to talk about, at least on the Japanese side of things, before we have a look at the US?
No, I think we've covered it all.
Yeah, I think we've done well. That's an hour and 3/4 nearly. So we will get through the New Japan Strong stuff. Now, this weekend we had Battle in the Valley on Saturday the 13th of November in San Jose. But before that, there was about an hour and a half of New Japan Strong as part of the Showdown Tour. There's a couple of key talking points from this. The four matches on the card was Alex Zane against Arya Davari. Zane winning that one. Danny Limelight and Tom Lawler losing to Fred Rosser and Rocky Romero. We'll come back to that in a second. Jay White beat Fred Yehai and Minoru Suzuki beat Chris Dickinson. I think the key talking point for anyone really, and where we should probably start this, is the Danny Limelight and Tom Lawler against Fred Rosser and Rocky Romero. Rocky Romero and Fred Rosser win the match. Initially, Team Filthy then get they cut Fred Rosser's hair. And it was an absolute state. And then I think Damon and Joel spoke about this on the last episode, because obviously it had been pre-recorded and the spoilers were out there. And then Tom Lawler proceeded to put Fred Rosser's hair into his mouth, which, it looked disturbing enough as it was. But I think the key kind of point is the comments in Fred Rosser's post-match interview. And I'll let you take the lead on that one, Nicole.
I didn't have a problem with Lawler eating the hair. That's definitely not as disgusting as, say, like Two Girls, One Cup. But
okay, you've sent this down in the different direction already.
Well, leading into that, I was actually more disturbed by Danny Limelight grabbing chunks of the hair, putting them in a Ziploc baggie, and then shoving them down his pants. And then as they're walking towards the back, he kept, he'd shove the bag down his pants, and then he'd pull the bag back out and show the hair. And that was the bit that I was looking at going, what are we doing here, guys? And I actually had to text Joel and go, look, I don't watch a lot of Strong. I actually don't watch any of it normally. And, is there like some backstory as to why we had Lawler cutting his hair? And Joel was like, nope. And I went, all right, just checking. And then, Fred Rosser just went the fuck off. Mr. Block the Hate is apparently all about the murder. And he cuts this promo where it is so incendiary that New Japan has to mute it, even though they continued to subtitle it for the Japanese audience. Oh. And which I just thought was funny. And apparently somebody kind of translated what the subtitles were, and it was a very kind of sanitized version of Fred Rosser's rants. clearly he's going somewhere because Rocky just has this reaction of once it mutes, Rocky just has this look of, oh, fuck, he's gone too far. And it wasn't like a kind of kayfabe kind of look. It was more of the look of the booker going, oh my God, you've just crossed a line, and I don't know how to deal with this in post-production kind of deal. Now, somebody on the Super J Cast Discord went and played Lip Reader, and provided that their lip reading is correct, Fred Rosser goes, and I'ma murder you in front of your kids. I'ma bend you over and humble you, you son of a bitch.
To the point.
Yeah. And as other people have noted, the I'ma bend you over and humble you is straight from the Iron Sheik's playbook. If you want to take that into a different connotation as to what he means when he says, I'ma bend you over and humble you, you are more than welcome to do that. A lot of us went that way with what he may have meant in those comments. For me, the bend you over and humble you is Iron Sheik. I'ma murder you in front of your kids. That immediately, for me, brought up Crazy Tyson post-incarceration when he's telling Lennox Lewis, I'm going to eat your kids. And he's
I remember that.
Yeah, and I'm going to, and he's biting off Holyfield's ear. I paid money to watch that. I was not amused on many levels. But yeah, so that it gave me more vibes of Tyson, because you could definitely lip read and catch murder and kids and kind of put the two together. And then, like I said, the bend you over and humble you. A lot of people noted that that's straight up out of the Iron Sheik's playbook. But that's definitely not kind of what we associate with this current incarnation of Rosser. Mr. Block the Hate, no days off, not happy-go-lucky, but a definite normally positive force. And now he's just all about fucking a man up in front of his kids.
Yeah. It just... it was unexpected, that kind of the vitriol and the pure kind of disgust in Rosser's voice. This man was angry. I completely agree when it comes to Rocky Romero's face, because it almost looks like he's just kind of gone, oh, fuck. You can see the cogs turning, and he's just like, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
So I think that was the biggest talking point from that episode of New Japan Strong. Which, we can kick straight into Battle in the Valley. It took, well, unless you got something else. Sorry, I just
the only thing I would want is shout out to that Dickinson Suzuki match. I think that might have been one of Suzuki's best matches on his little barnstorming U.S. tour. Mm-hmm. And a great showcase for Dickinson. Also in Fred is it Yehi?
Yehi.
Yehi. In the Jay White match, I know people are sitting here going, oh, I want to see, Dickinson over, and I want to see Lawler, and I want to see West Coast Wrecking Crew, and I want to see this person and that person. I want to get Yehi over. I liked him a lot in that White match. He was able to hold his own with Jay. And looked like he belonged, and it showed me enough that I would like to see him have a little run in Japan and bring him over for a tour and see what he does.
Yeah, no arguments from me. That's he's a very talented individual. I'm fairly sure I've seen him wrestle over here for Revolution Pro Wrestling. I think. I've seen a fair few people there, but I'm fairly sure I've seen Fred Yehi. But yeah, definitely seen some of the stuff that he's done over in the States, and he's there's a lot of potential there for him to become a big star. His moveset and the way he just moves around the ring with ease. He's very familiar. It's as if he's been doing it all his life. So just we'll go straight on to Battle in the Valley before we wrap things up. there was what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we had 8 matches on this card. It was pretty stacked. It was a good way to get New Japan kind of out there again. It was one of their kind of big shows, and they obviously put a bit of effort in by bringing in over Okada and Ishii.
I'm sorry to interrupt you here, because let's get the elephant, or one of the elephants, out of the room with this show. And you talk about New Japan putting in a lot of effort in bringing in Ishii and bringing in Okada and putting on this pretty stacked show that on paper looked great. You had Will as well against Ren Narita. Mm-hmm. And so you put all this effort in to get your stars on this show, and you had that fucking production value. We sit here and we're all kind of cherry picking who out of all these releases from ROH and WWE, who we want to bring over and who we would like to see in a New Japan ring. You know what I want to see us sign and who bring over? I want us to see us bring over the ROH production crew and stop making these shows look like absolute pieces of shit visually. This is your big show. This is one of your pay-per-view level, putting on as many matches as you would put on a Power Struggle or any of your other major Japanese shows. And it looked like I was watching like a 244p level on YouTube. And that is inexcusable. Forget the fact that the Japanese feed looked like it was just somebody screen camming it from a feed and not even getting like proper feed from San Jose. Let's forget that for a second. It just looked horrible. And if you're trying to make a statement and you're trying to get people to watch your product, that is not the way to do it. And I don't know what's going on. And from a production standpoint, the hard cam was placed in a horrible position, and whoever was cutting it in the production truck should have been fired mid-match. Just horrible and inexcusable. And we talk about this every time that there's a major show in the U.S., and it's not been the same since they stopped their relationship with ROH or gone to whatever they're phrasing their relationship with ROH. It's clearly not involving the production staff, and we need to bring those guys over. I don't care how much money it costs, but if you're going to continue to do major shows in the U.S., you've got to up your production game and stop looking Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, no arguments with me from me there. I think you've hit the nail right on the head in that respect. The production was poor. I think the thing that I noticed, it looked. So I watched it on the world feed the day after when they had the English commentary, and it almost felt jolty. Like it didn't seem smooth, and the amount of times that the camera was pointing either at the floor or at the ring apron instead of what was going on in the ring. And you'd see the cameraman move with the camera. It was really poorly done for a company that, when they're doing shows in Japan, they're well oiled and they're fairly seamless. They know what they're doing there. It's just they won't. So they'll fly over Okada and Ishii, but they won't fly over their full on kind of production team. Yeah, which, as you said, it lets them down.
And I get not flying over the production team. It costs a lot of money to get that many bodies and visas and things like that. So I get that. I get why you're not bringing the actual production guys over. But you're in California. You're telling me that you couldn't spend a little bit of money and get some guys out of LA that know what the fuck they're doing, that have experience to make this happen, and to not make it look so cheap and small time and shindy? Come on.
Yeah, it's that is probably the biggest disappointment of the show. And well, other than Dickinson's injury, I think that was quite up there as well. But it's just, I think the frustration is, as you said, it just doesn't get any better. No matter how many times that New Japan come over to the States and put on shows, it's just not improving, is it?
No, it's actually getting worse. I think Resurgence looked better than this, and I had issues with how Resurgence looked and how Resurgence was cut from a production, truck point of view, but that looked 10 times better than what we got with Battle in the Valley. And I watched the world feed live, and so it stutters when Yuya is coming out, so you're just staring at this still of Yuya getting into the ring while the commentary is still going on. And it just, it took what could have been a contender for show of the year for New Japan. And let's be honest, New Japan does not have a lot of shows in contention for that end of the year title. But it took a show that on paper and for the most part match-wise, you wouldn't have a problem if somebody wanted to make it their show of the year. And it just took it down away from that because it looks so small time.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll come to the matches in a second because there were some of the bits there that some bits really shone, even though the production value was in the gutter. There's a few kind of key bits that I want to talk about. But I think, hopefully, one day soon. I mean, the thing is, with Ring of Honor now being on, a 5-month or 4-month sabbatical, they've left their talent all out of contracts. You'd hope that maybe the production guys, the guys behind the scenes, are not necessarily in the same boat as being out of a job, but able to come over to someone like New Japan because they've got not as much work. And New Japan can make use of them and up their production values.
Yeah, and then also side note, the ring was squeaky as fuck.
I didn't notice that.
I might be confusing it with Strong, but it was either Strong or Battle in the Valley where you could just hear everything on that ring, just a squeak, squeak, as it was moving. And again, it's just one of those production things where it's like, hire guys from ROH, hire local guys out of LA, but just you got to do something. Absolutely do something if you want to continue to make inroads in the Western market.
Looking at the so we've been talking for nearly 2 hours now, so I think we'll zip through the Battle in the Valley card. I'll run through the card as to what it was, and then we'll just go over any kind of key points I think that come from it, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it started off. We had Yuya Uemura taking on Josh Alexander. Josh Alexander won that one. Violence Unlimited again, which was Chris Dickinson and Brody King against the Stray Dog Army. Bateman and I've not written down the other geezer's name, so I apologise for my poor preparation in that one.
It was Bateman and Mysterioso.
Mysterioso, that was it. So that was the kind of highlighted by the Dickinson injury, which we'll come back to. So the third match on the card, Team Filthy against the mishmash team of Fred Rosser, David Finlay, Rocky Romero, Alex Coughlin and Alex Zane. We had a tag match, Jeff Cobb and TJP of the United Empire losing to Carl Fredericks and Clark Connors. We had Ren Narita taking on Will Ospreay, the supposed real New Japan Pro Wrestling World Heavyweight Champion. Moose versus Juice Robinson. Kazuchika Okada versus Buddy Matthews, and Tomohiro Ishii against Jay White for the Never Openweight title. As I said, there's a few talking points, at least in my opinion. The Dickinson injury stands out for me. It was a nasty injury. We've already talked about the fact that he's going to be out for 5 to 6 months. I thought the match was going really well, and then as soon as Dickinson landed on that frog splash, you saw him pull up, and you knew something was wrong, didn't you?
Yeah, I thought it was a hammy, because of where he was grabbing. And then obviously I give props to the other 3 guys and to the referee for realizing that, once they realized that Dickinson was not going to be able to continue the match, to at least get us to some kind of actual conclusion without having to throw up the X. Mysterio, and Brody kind of doing some quick kind of lucha stuff and a little bit of high flying outside of the ring, and then Bateman, I guess, kind of finding a way that he could pin Dickinson without further exasperating that injury, to at least get us to a proper finish. So yeah, definitely kind of shout out to them for making that happen, because this is a horribly cursed promotion right now. And as disappointing as it was to see Dickinson get the injury and to see them have to stretcher him out, I don't know from a mood standpoint how we all would have been kind of finishing up this show if they'd had to throw the X up, considering less than a month ago, we saw that X having to basically go up for Ibushi and having to witness that. So I'm glad we didn't get, full on kind of re-traumatized to seeing favorite wrestlers getting stretchered out of the ring.
I think as you say, it was handled exceptionally well by the other wrestlers involved, by the referee, and by the commentators as well. I think that Kevin Kelly and that irritating Alex Kozlov, I swear he needs to just fuck off. But they did well by focusing on what was going on outside the ring with Brody King and Mysterio. So, they could see that obviously Dickinson was in trouble, and they kind of sold it that hang on, we didn't see what happened. When Bateman pinned Dickinson, it was very much we didn't see what happened. We were too busy looking at Brody King and Mysterio. So they really kind of sold that they weren't paying attention to the fact that Dickinson was getting the medical attention that he needed, or at least getting the attention that he needed. I think they handled it exceptionally well, which is kudos to everyone involved there. I think that was well done.
Yeah. Yeah, now I want to quick hop back to the opener with Yuya and Alexander. I thought that was a hot opener. Yuya is just excelling and growing with his excursion to the LA dojo. I think we can all in agreement that we would love to see more of Alexander in a New Japan ring, but at least wanted us to give Yuya some flowers, because that was a great opener.
Yeah, Yuya as well as Ren have both shone from their excursions in the US, and Yuya's doing exceptionally well. It was, as you say, it was a great opener against Alexander, and his young lion compadre did a superb job against Will Ospreay a couple of matches later down the card. I think I know there's issues with Will Ospreay and people not necessarily like. Some people can do it, some people can't. They disassociate the person from the match, and I can do that. Will as a person, grade A arsehole from all kind of intents and purposes. But when it comes to what he does in the ring, he does it exceptionally well, and he can make other people look good as well. And there was an element of that, plus the fact that Ren has come on in leaps and bounds from his time, his early days as a young lion in Japan. He looked credible. I don't think we ever really thought he was going to win, but he looked like he was putting up a hell of a fight against Will Ospreay, and I think I thought that was a fantastic match, and all credit to, again, it comes back to the fact that the young lion system works, and these guys, when they've got the talent, it shines through.
That was my match of the night. And I'm a little sad that it wasn't higher up the card. I understand why, you've got Okada. You got to have, if you're not going to have Okada in the main, you got to have Okada in the semi-main. I get that. I kind of maybe would have liked to have seen this before, or actually after Juice and Moose. But yeah, this was my head and shoulders match of the night. This might be my favorite Will match of the year. I know I am an outlier in that I did not like any of his Shingo matches this year. I enjoyed the Ibushi match at Sakura Genesis. The Okada match was good at Wrestle Kingdom, but this is the Will Ospreay that I want to see. The guy that doesn't have to get all of his shit in, Because sometimes Will does a match and it feels like he's working off a checklist. Oh, I got Pip Pip Cheerio in. Oh, I got Robinson Crusoe special sauce number 5 in. I got this move in. I got that move in. And that was not the case in this match. He made Narita look like a star. And that's what I want to see from Will. That's what I want to see from all your top guys. Your tippy top guys should have the ability to make guys look like stars even when you beat them. And he did that with Narita. I also like the fact that he finished the match with the hidden blade. He was trying to get Stormbreaker, but that the match finished with hidden blade. I love that because I think hidden blade should be his finisher because that's just a nasty move. But yeah, I echo everything you pretty much said. Yeah, Will as a person is a grade A twat. But he has his moments in ring where you can appreciate what he's doing in ring. And for me, this was like my highlight of the year from Will. This is a match that I would maybe go back and rewatch. Especially with English comms, because again, I watched live with the Japanese comms, so I wouldn't mind. As much as I hate Kozlov, and I am with the majority that is saying just put him in the bin. I understand Rocky trying to get his mate a job, but like you got to find something else to do with Kozlov.
Yeah, he's not the guy that should be on comms, whether it's with Drama King Matt or on Strong or with Kevin Kelly on these bigger shows. Kozlov he's dull. He's dull as dishwater. He really is, and he adds nothing to the show for me. I'm sorry, but they need someone else in that seat. They really do. A couple of other things from this show. You mentioned the Moose and Juice. At least you'd have preferred the Will match probably after that. I know you said you don't really watch anything or not watch WWE for a long time or anything else really. Impact is where Moose is at home. I've seen him a couple of times and whether it's on Impact or whether it's on New Japan, I don't get it. I don't get the fuss. He's talented, but he's nothing special for me. I don't get the kind of the hype. And when he's in a match against Juice Robinson, who someone else that I was behind, when I started to get into New Japan, I was surprised that he was in a match against Cody on Wrestle Kingdom 11. But I've seen him progress and become better and better, and his tag team with Finlay has been fantastic. But I'm not getting this whole Macho Man tribute gimmick. He ends up looking like a bit of a twat. It just doesn't suit him. And to me, I suppose, this was my most forgettable but yet memorable match because it was two bits that I just felt irritated by. The only positive being the appearance of Jonah, or the artist formerly known as Bronson Reed in NXT. At the end, I think Jonah, he's a big athletic guy, and he can do the flippy shit that some people like that the smaller guys can do, but yet he's got that power, to really kind of fit in on New Japan Strong. So I'm excited to see where Jonah goes, but that was probably the biggest positive for me out of that match. I don't suppose you with at least with New Japan you've seen Juice, haven't you? Are you behind him or are you fed up with him at the moment?
So first, to lead into this, I want to quick jump back to the 10-man, because that had Finlay and Coughlin. First, I want to throw some flowers at Coughlin. I think between Coughlin, Connors, and Fredericks, he is head and shoulders above the three out of the three. Why they don't graduate him is beyond me. I think he's due it. And then we had Finlay in that match, who's just there. And that's how I felt about this Juice and Moose match. It was just there. I don't understand why we had it. As far as I can tell, there's not like some major program between Juice and Moose and Impact. It was just Juice showing up going, I'd like to fight you. You know, Juice has been in this program with Hikuleo on Strong, where I feel like in 2030 we're going to have on night 21 of Wrestle Kingdom and Beppu an opening match between Hikuleo and Juice, because it just feels never ending. I've watched Juice in New Japan. I was all on board with Juice, like in 2018 and 2019. One of the best promos out there. Great guy. You could see the effort. I don't know. And I'm going to tie Jay White into this, and let's kind of just address the other elephant in the room from this show is, what the fuck are we doing with these three guys? Finlay, Juice, and White. I watched, because I'm insane, I watched the Juice Enzo match. That was, I think, Northeastern Wrestling. That was like a 15-minute time limit draw. Like, Juice can't even be booked to beat Enzo. Let's think about this for a second. Juice can't be booked to beat Enzo. This is how far he has fallen.
Yeah.
And these three guys, I know there are some questions and some ideas that maybe, you know, Jay didn't get on a plane because he's trying to get a green card. The guys mentioned that last week. I think Kevin Kelly had mentioned that in one of the G1 commentaries, that Jay's trying to get a green card. So I kind of get that. But I came away from this show feeling the same way I did about the Elite at the end of Wrestle Kingdom 13. Everybody was doing business on their way out of town. And New Japan, to me, feels like they are booking these guys like they're not coming back next year. As we talked about a little bit earlier, I don't see Finlay and Juice getting on a plane to go to Japan for Wrestle Kingdom. I would love to see it because we need the bodies, but if they don't, I'm not going to be sad. Jay, I would be sad if he left New Japan. I think the world could be his oyster with New Japan if he stuck around, but I get it if he doesn't want to. But with these three guys, I'm done with them. It feels like New Japan is done with them. They have not booked them well at all. It's, you know, because you've got these three guys, and you would think common sense would say, okay, you've got three really talented guys that even a casual Western fan is somewhat aware of, especially Jay, who was hotter than hot at the end of Wrestle Kingdom. I mean, when's the last time that we talked about a Wrestle Kingdom main event where the loser was the bigger talking point than the winner? And rightfully so, because Jay came out of that looking like a mega star. And now this is where we're at with Jay, where much like with Tanahashi, I don't know what Jay's program for Wrestle Kingdom would even be if they flew him over. What the fuck are you doing with him? What the fuck are you doing with Juice? And what the fuck are you doing with Finlay? Because they haven't been using them on Strong, which is what I would have done. All right, I got these three guys, and yeah, I don't want to take away from my Strong product, but I got a real easy way to get some additional eyeballs on my product and to grow it and to give them something to do while they're in the States and waiting for Japan to make it a little bit easier to come and go. And they haven't done that outside of, you know, Juice's never-ending feud with Hikuleo. Impact has barely used them. They've used Finlay and Juice a little bit more than Jay. Jay was there for like 3 matches and then nothing. He's not been on AEW, which again, I can understand if you're sitting there going, well, what do you do with Jay in AEW? Okay, I don't know what you do with him, but you could probably do something with him. You know, they're finding uses for Rocky Romero. I love Rocky, no slight on Rocky. You know, I think Ren Narita got a dark match. Tony Khan is a smart man. He could find something to do with Jay. I feel fairly confident that there's a couple program options out there that they could have run with if they had wanted to. But they haven't done that. They've all sat on their asses. Jay's done Warrior Wrestling, fighting Corey Graves' brother in the ME in a high school gym. You went from main eventing Wrestle Kingdom to being the most talked about guy in the industry to working a high school gym against Corey Graves' brother. What are we doing? What are you doing? Why should I even care at this point? Juice, all the Juice Moose match felt like it was just a setup for Jonah. And so once again, Juice is laying down for another WWE former employee. The same thing with Cody, the same thing with Mox. Finlay doesn't even get that. Finlay's just in a 10-man match, and he's kind of there, and he didn't do much. I guess they'll be working on the Strong tapings. I haven't seen the spoilers. I've seen some of the graphics, and that's fine. But at this point, what are we doing with them? And I don't think it's a damn thing, but just waiting for their contracts to time out and let them go do something else. And at this point, outside of Jay, on some level, I could care less.
I'm almost speechless. That was awesome. I loved that. Absolutely brilliant. You've hit all the points there and hit the nail on the head, I think, and probably summed up a lot of people's thoughts there. There's not much I can add to that. I mean, looking at the rest of the card from the Battle in the Valley, there's nothing I really want to talk to. I think you've kind of you've put me down there. I can't think of what to say.
Sorry about that. No, we should definitely talk about Okada and Buddy. That was a good match. I don't think it was a great match, but Buddy showed that he can play at this level. It was the match that I think we needed to see out of Buddy, because obviously if you can't hold your own against Okada, there's no reason to think that you can hold your own against the rest of the roster. And again, much like Will, Okada did his job and made Buddy look good. My biggest thing with the Okada is that pop for Okada was insane. Had to be the biggest pop of the night.
Yeah, definitely. The fans love him, and I think that's, whether that's in Japan or whether that's in the States, you hear that music hit and you go mad. It's just, he is a New Japan Pro Wrestling superstar that no matter where he goes, people will take notice.
And this is why you don't have or let Okada or Naito or Tanahashi or Ibushi show up at other promotions. Yes, it's cool to fantasy book. And yeah, we would love to see some of those potential matches. But the reason why Okada gets the pop that he gets when he comes to America is because he is a special attraction. We do not get to see Okada all the time. And for these pay-per-views, that's basically what I'm calling shows like Resurgence and Battle in the Valley. You need that pop. You need that special attraction. And if you have them work Dynamite, and you have them work Impact, and you have them work even Strong tapings, you dilute that specialness. I was at G1 in Dallas, and I was part of that crowd that for 5 minutes just stomped and cheered for Tanahashi and Okada while they did absolutely nothing and stared at each other in the ring. Because all 6,000 of us knew that we would probably never get the opportunity to see these two great men in the ring again. Because how many of us are really going to have the luxury to fly to Japan for a Wrestle Kingdom or for a random New Japan show that they may be on? Not all of us can do that. And that was special. And that's why that crowd pops when they see Okada, because they know they're seeing something special. But you throw him on a Dynamite, and that specialness is gone. And speaking of specialness, let's talk about Ishii being on Dynamite this week in a match with Orange Cassidy against the Butcher and the Blade. This is a prime example of how you dilute specialness. You've got Ishii, very popular in the West, probably more popular, probably right up there with Okada, Tanahashi, Ibushi, and Naito for who Western fans want to see. And you've got him in a tag match with Orange Cassidy against the Butcher and the Blade. What are we doing? Now I will concede that maybe a program may have been meant for Mox, right? Because I'm sure Ishii is on Mox's little wish list of guys he would like to face in AEW, and Tony doesn't want to get those 2 a.m. calls of Mox just going, get me a Japanese guy. So I'm willing to concede that maybe the original plan was Ishii and Mox for maybe a little Dynamite program, especially now that he's got the never open weight championship. But that just blows my mind. I think it's a horrible usage of him. I hope they make a Danielson match. I hope they make that work, because apparently Danielson asked for Ishii backstage, because by that point it had gotten out that Ishii was going to be on Dynamite, and that would be a match that I would want to see. And that's a special match. If you're going to have these guys pop up in these other promotions, that's the type of matches you need to have them in. You have to need to have them in special matches. Danielson Ishii, Daniel Garcia Ishii, Wheeler Yuta Ishii. Just fun dream matches. That's the type you need to have, not in weird tag matches. I don't get it. But that is a prime example of why I think the Forbidden Door is swinging the way that it swings. That, you're getting New Japan guys on AEW, but it's dads. It's Rocky. It's, Ren Narita doing like a single dark match. You're getting eyeballs, but you can't risk the specialness for your own shows. You got to keep that for yourself.
Yeah, I get the dilution is very true when it comes to Ishii. He's being put into Dynamite in a filler match. It has no bearing on the general kind of progression of Dynamite, which is a shame. Now that I've had a bit of time to kind of collect my thoughts again, after just a couple of things to point out. Alex Coughlin, I know you mentioned that he stands out above the rest of the strong young lions. Him deadlifting JR Kratos in the 10-man tag was like an incredible feat of strength. It looked superb, and the crowd bought it, and the crowd were fully on his side. Absolutely loved that. And going to what you said about the Okada and Buddy Matthews match, yeah, it's exactly what we needed from Buddy Matthews. I think he made a very good impression on the New Japan fans. I think he's someone that could be a regular on Strong, and people will get behind him, or at least or see him as a heel. He can work both ways, and I think he's very, very positive addition to the team. The one other thing I think just to mention before we kind of start to wrap up, after the Okada Matthews match, Will Ospreay came out, didn't he? And so we're getting Double Dash essentially again when it comes to Wrestle Kingdom. So the first night of Wrestle Kingdom, we'll see Okada take on Shingo for the title that Shingo holds, and then on the second night we'll see Ospreay challenge the winner. Do we really have to go through all this again? It's just like, I suppose it was always going to happen when they made a third night of Wrestle Kingdom, but come on, guys, this is like the third year on the bounce we've done something like this, isn't it?
The funniest part of this is Naito sitting there going, I'm on the roster and I'm an employee of this company and I don't understand what's going on. Bitch, you started this. All this Double Dash bullshit is Naito's fault. Because you had to be a special boy and have 2 titles when you didn't have a fucking claim to either of them. And you've started us down this rabbit hole of hell of Double Gold Dash. At least the first go around at least kind of made a little bit of sense. All right, we're gonna have the IC match, and we're gonna have the V4 match, and then those 2 winners face each other. That at least made some sense. Then they fucked up last year. All you had to do to make that make sense was have Ibushi and Jay go night 1, and then the winner faces Naito on night 2. Very easy. But I get it. You need to have the heavyweight belt main event January 4th because it's Legacy, and that's the main night of Wrestle Kingdom. But you've managed to fuck that up. And then speaking of dilution, multiple nights of Wrestle Kingdom basically dilutes Wrestle Kingdom. And now we're up to 3. So now we got to find a way to fill this mess. I wonder if this was the original plan, because obviously I would hope that the booking committee was not sitting there going, well, odds are pretty good that maybe Will Ospreay's going to fuck his neck up and have to vacate the title. So we're going to let him go home with a copy with his own version of the belt. So when he gets healthy, he can pop the fuck back up and do, I'm the real world champion. That's obviously not what happened. So in that regards, it's them making, again, chicken salad out of chicken shit. But it also plays into the fact that Will won't get on a fucking plane. Will get on a plane to go to England and work Rev Pro shows, but you can't get him on a fucking plane to come to Japan and to settle this shit. So now this is how we're settling it. Again, I would prefer maybe Shingo and Will night 1 facing Okada night 2. But then that leads into the issue of, does New Japan view Shingo and Will as main eventers together for Wrestle Kingdom without having them basically be one half of a Wrestle Kingdom main event with somebody like Okada? And I think the answer is clearly no. Obviously, there is some debate. I'm not the only person that thinks this, that the idea that these two failed attempts at having Shingo versus Ibushi for the title was to get the title on Ibushi and to get it off of Shingo. Because I'm pretty sure also New Japan probably really didn't have plans for Shingo to go into G1 as the champion. I think they probably would have preferred, especially after Naito did his knee in, to have maybe get the title off of Shingo at Power Struggle. And then you'd have Shingo and Sonata for World Tag League, and that's perfectly fine. But again, Ibushi had to shatter his shoulder, so you got to have Naito basically show back up for World Tag League. Because Naito's sitting here going, they didn't rush me back. Well, normally when you say they didn't rush me back, they rushed you back. And Naito's insane. Naito would have come back one way or the other anyway. So this is where we're left with only one of your 4 main eventers that you normally count on to do Wrestle Kingdom are actually in a position to do Wrestle Kingdom. I think losing Ibushi, I think, hurts way more than we want to talk about, because as Joel has talked about on previous episodes of the J-Cast, since 2018, Ibushi has been counted on to main event a lot of the big shows and a lot of the major houses, whether it's Budokan or Tokyo Dome. And if he's not main eventing, he's semi-maining. And you don't have him. You may have him. The timeline means you have an outside chance of having him for night 3. I wouldn't do it. I would have him do one of these 50th anniversary shows and that be his return. But I also could easily see night 2, Okada is there holding however many belts he's going to be holding, at least 3 between the fake belt, the real belt, and V4. And he's starting to make it rain, and Ibushi's music hits. And he goes, hey, what about Yokohama? I wouldn't run it at Yokohama, but I could definitely see New Japan doing that if Ibushi can go. But this is where we're at, where you don't have a lot of, and this is kind of leads back to the problem. We talked about it with the junior division. We also have it with the heavyweight division of making stars and making credible people that can main event these major shows and put asses in seats and put money in pockets. And you don't have a lot of those guys right now. And I don't think New Japan feels that Shingo is that guy. So that's why you've got him facing Okada. And then that's why he's probably going to lose to Okada. And Okada's going to then face Will. They don't trust him to go together.
No, you know what? And I think, you've covered that pretty well, or very well actually. And there's nothing more I can add to that. I think it's about time we it's a good way to wrap up this podcast. Is there anything that you want to get off your chest quickly before we close the door and say goodbye to this guest hosting of Super J Cast?
I want to quick. I'm not going to get into any of the. I'm only going to get to one Discord question. A couple of them were mainly meant to wind me the fuck up about Golden Lovers and Ibushi and AEW. And hey, if we get to come back next week, I can definitely tackle that one then. So I do apologize because everybody was looking forward to that. But hopefully you kind of got a little bit of what y'all wanted from a ranty perspective. But I do want to touch, because Joel asked about sumo. So the Kyushu Basho started on Sunday. And what Joel wanted to ask me was what I think of sumo in a post-Hakuho world. It is very weird. I've been watching sumo since 2015, and this is obviously the first time I've looked at a Banzuke and not have Hakuho's name on it. And that is very weird for me. I think sumo is in a transition period. We're talking about stars in New Japan. Sumo doesn't have, I think right now, anybody that can be the next Yokozuna. Maybe Hoshoryu. I like how he looks. I think it's still a little too early on him. I am done with Takakeisho. I love him. I think he's a little too brittle. I've never liked Shodai. I could go on a whole rant about Shodai and how I think he's probably going to end up being one of the worst fucking Ozekis that sumo has ever seen in the modern era. I love Mitaki Yumi. He's already got 2 U-shows. I don't think he has it mentally. It's very interesting times for sumo. If you want to get on, this would actually probably be a really great time to hop on. You need to go find from day 2 of Kyusho, Teruno Fuji, and Daisho. That was an amazing match. And that's probably the first time in a couple of years that I've watched a match that has literally had me out of my seat and like pacing my living room and making noise and probably upsetting my neighbors at a very horrible time of night watching that. It was a really great match. Daisho had Teruno Fuji on the ropes. Daisho had beaten Teruno Fuji last Basho. I think that was Teruno Fuji's only loss that tournament. And Daisho looked like he was going to get it. And Teruno Fuji displayed tremendous Yokozuna power and strength and what you want to see out of a Yokozuna. I think he's going to be kind of an interregnum Yokozuna. I don't think he's going to last long. I don't trust his knees. I would like to see him last long. I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's going to at least be, hopefully he'll stick around long enough for them to find somebody else to be Yokozuna. And that's going to be a few years. If we get another Yokozuna by 2024, I am going to be impressed. But that is some very quick thoughts on sumo. And I'll find a link for Teruno Fuji and Daisho, and I'll put that up on my Twitter feed. And everybody can definitely check that match out. But yeah, now is the time to hop on the sumo train, because there's a lot of change going on, and it's actually a really good entry point to get in on it.
Okay, right. Thank you for that. And so we'll wrap up then and say if you want to give the Super J Cast some money, it's redcircle.com/super-j-cast. If you want to help support the show, obviously Joel and Damon are the main guys that are here, but on behalf of myself, Alan, and Nicole as well, we thank you very much for listening. If you want to buy a t-shirt, it's cobrakawaii.com or prowrestlingtees/superjcast. Thank you very much for listening. Check out the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network for a load more great shows, and we'll see you next week maybe.
At Simple Mobile, you get the no contract advantage. Those other mobile companies make you think you're in control, but you're really not. Simple Mobile is different. You can get a powerful nationwide 5G network all without a contract. It's the reliability you need when you need it, with no mystery fees, no activation fees, and no contract ever. Simple Mobile. Out with the old, in with the simple. 5G capable device and SIM required. Actual availability, coverage, and speed may vary. 5G network not available in all areas. 5G upload speeds not yet available.
Here's to getting back together. To planned lunches and unplanned cookouts. to grandma's recipes and smells that take us back, to passing down plates and traditions. Here's to warm embraces and familiar faces, to your best friends becoming best friends, to scheming, dreaming, and food still steaming. Here's to laughter and love, to growing closer than ever. For all of life's get-togethers, Chinette, here's to us.